Welcome to another episode of Band Director Bootcamp, the podcast with productivity and wellness tips for busy band directors. I'm your host, Lesley Moffat, and I'm really grateful to be sharing this platform with you. As busy band directors, we know you don't have time to watch lots of lengthy professional development webinars, so we share 20-minute tidbits with takeaways you can use to support you with professional longevity and a healthier life. And today, even though it's called Band Director Bootcamp, you guys, I'm going to the dark side. I am bringing my colleague and dear friend, Monica Camp, on board because 2 years ago, I moved to a new school, and Monica is the orchestra teacher there. She welcomed me with open arms, and even though it was my 36th year of teaching, I have learned so much from her and stolen lots of her stuff. So I'm like, let's just put this out there in the open. So I said, Monica, come and do Band Director Bootcamp. And she willingly is doing this. So I'll tell you a little bit about her is that she's unusual for a middle school teacher. She has her master's in conducting. You should watch her conduct sometimes. It's magnificent. She's got total control of her orchestras. She's also the mom of 2 young girls and a dog, so she knows about busyness and all the things. She loves to cook when she has some spare time, and she earned this year our Regional MPMEA Music Educator of the Year award. So, Monica, welcome to Band Director Bootcamp.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, cool. I'm excited because what we're going to talk about today is what you have done to make the first week of school less stressful than it's ever been by the way you approach the whole first month. I remember working with you the first time, and you have the days outlined. It was just magnificent to watch. So she's going to tell us a little bit about that. We're going to talk about the importance of and why you really think through how to prep the classroom for the year. She's going to share some of the classroom decor that she has that serves multiple purposes. That includes providing information students need, but it also looks really cool and vibrant and bright. And then, she's just got a few other things she's going to share with us. And we're going to tell you how you can get your hands on some of this stuff, but you need to know what it is first. So, Monica, why are you a music teacher?
Well, I had a really great, high school band director. I was taking orchestra. He was teaching orchestra. And then I took, for a second elective, I took band, and he let me play in the percussion section. And he just made such an impact on me. I'll shout him out, Randy Viewer. He is the reason I am here, and just kind of motivated me to change students' lives in that way. And then as I was coming out of getting my degree and getting my certification, I was just really influenced by several teachers that helped me see how you could organize things in such a way that the classroom just runs so smoothly and seamlessly. And if you put that time in on the front end, then it makes the rest of the year just so much fun. And even when things do get busy and stressful, I have those procedures I can fall back on and just kind of rely on to make the day-to-day work still.
Yeah. And if you're a new teacher listening, it's sort of like you learn the fundamentals on your instrument. You spend the time shedding the scales and doing those things so that when you need them later, they're at your fingertips. And I've watched Monica's classroom. I can firsthand witness to she gets the organization, she does all the background work, and then things just magically unfold. It's like, wow. So we're going to steal some of your ideas today. And let's talk about how you approach the first few weeks of school so that you're not freaking out and all the things. What are some of your tips for that?
Yeah, so I take a look at that first month calendar, and I try and split it first 2 weeks and second 2 weeks. And for us, our first 2 weeks, we start on a Wednesday. So when I say first 2 weeks, it's 8 school days, taking me Wednesday through Friday and then Monday through Friday. And I use those first 2 weeks, or in our case, the first 8 days, to do everything that I need to do without instruments. So we'll do icebreakers and team building activities for my returning students. I make sure I have a really solid syllabus that goes over everything that might come up. And whenever something does come up, I add to that. And then for the beginners, we're going to go through selecting an instrument, getting that instrument information out. But I also like for all of my students to start talking about how to practice effectively, and then making sure that they understand the rehearsal norms and expectations that are going to help us run smoothly, pointing it out where it's posted on our wall in our classroom. I have an activity that I do with them where we talk through what those norms are going to be. And then we'll have a day where half of class we're just working through what are the logistics of bringing your instrument? What are the logistics? How do you take a music stand off of a rack? And then how do you put it back so that Mrs. Camp doesn't have to go at the end of the day and fix them all? And so all of this is happening and needs to happen before the instruments even go into their hands, because at that point, their brain focuses on the instrument instead of focusing on these. So I like taking those first 2 weeks, or like I said, in our case, first 8 days, to really get that set. And then once we get to the second 2 weeks, we do have instruments in our hands, but I am not worrying about the music. I am just worrying about what needs to happen to make our rehearsal process smooth and efficient and excellent, really. So if that means that we have to practice multiple times of me stepping on and off the podium until their podium procedure is really solid, if that means that the warm-ups weren't quite right, the person who was leading the warm-ups had them kind of out of order, we'll fix all of those things. And I'm just not going to worry about the notes so much as what's happening in rehearsal, so that by the time you get to the second month and you can really dive into the music, all of those other things are set and in place.
And that's hard to do. I know for a lot of us, because
Yes.
we're going to have concerts coming up and all of this. But I've watched the impact that it's had. And by the time your concert comes up, the kids know everything else, so you can learn your music so much faster. And I hear that progress being next door to you. So, and I'm, again, having taught high school, I was shocked last year at my first year of middle school, or 2 years ago, I guess it was now, things like, how do you open the case? I had no idea that was important until 3 clarinets rolled onto the floor, right? So
Yep.
you were right on there with especially the younger kids. Well, even in the older schools, a lot of those other procedures, how to enter the room and the like. So, and I know you've created a lot of different things that you've got that outline all of these things, and we'll drop a link in the show notes for the rest of you guys, for where you can see some of this, the stuff she's got. And let's talk about, speaking of prepping classrooms or things that you've got, it's more than just how to decorate a classroom. You have created a classroom that highly functions. And I'm just going to brag on you for a minute, because our school districts, how many years ago we didn't have an orchestra at all? Any orchestras?
Maybe 10 to 15 years ago, there wasn't an orchestra program. Yeah.
So it hasn't even started for 10 years. And now Monica is busting at the seams. We have issues with space. She's going to have to teach in the cafeteria because there's so many kids. But she has, through the use of all kinds of things like colored tapes and all kinds of things, I want you to talk about prepping your room to avoid damage to instruments, to facilitate all the things, and why you do this, because that forethought is really important.
So this was kind of on my mind as I was entering the summer. I like to do a lot of prep in that week right after students leave. Everything is fresh in my mind. Our counseling team is fabulous. And so they got us the initial class list. Of course, they're going to change, but it at least tells me about how many kids I'm looking at in that classroom. And the numbers were just slightly different. And so I spent a day kind of looking at where my cello and bass racks are in the classroom, but where do those students have to take those instruments across the room? And our classroom sizes are just such that it's pretty much wall-to-wall kids in the orchestra room. And so there is not a way for the cellists to take the instrument off the rack and go around the outside of the room to get to the cello section. And it's on the opposite corner. And so I'm standing there looking at how do students travel through the classroom and figuring out ways to get them there. And that's kind of how I approach things. So I just stood on the podium and thought, okay, students walk in the room. Where do they need to go to get their instruments? How do they then get to their seat? And thinking through these processes and where there might be choke points, where there might be instrument damage issues. So some things that I've done is we have carpet in the classroom. And so I've found Velcro dots that you might use in an elementary music classroom or an elementary classroom. And it also has they also have Velcro tape. And so I have placed on the ground pathways where I want the cellists and the bassists to walk with their instruments. Other things I think about are if there's going to be any choke points, how can I time it so that there aren't any traffic jams. So one example I have is we have a 4-minute passing period, and I have my violinists and violists get their instruments off of the shelves, but leave them in the case until the bell rings, because there's just too many students wandering through the classroom to have instruments coming out of cases. And then the cellists and bassists just get everything set up except their instruments. Once the bell rings, then the violinists and violists need to be in their seats, and then that clears the pathway for the cellist and the bassist to move. So being in such a packed classroom space has forced me to think about that, but not just the layout for physical space, but the layout, how do I want things to move time-wise? And then I implemented just this last year, I used that Velcro floor tape and I marked off kind of a bubble around my cello and bass racks because we had just had so many oops moments the year before, and that adds up. So last year I piloted saying nobody is going in this zone near the cellos and basses unless you play the cello or bass and you're supposed to be getting or returning your instrument right now. And other than that, nobody is up there. And that made such a world of difference. So when I stand and I look at my classroom, I've got the chairs laid out, but I've also marked pathways and I've marked places I don't want students to go. If someone has hard flooring, by the way, Cricut smart vinyl tape is awesome. It comes in a roll. You don't even need to have a Cricut machine. And it's kind of like a big sticker. You can get it in a lot of different colors and just cut it out by hand. And so I used to make these circle dots in my classroom at my other school where we didn't have carpeted floors. And then I put those Cricut smart vinyl dots down. They peel up right at the end of the year. And the custodians were just fine with that. So if you're looking for other ways to mark the floor, Cricut smart vinyl is the way to go.
Well, and I wish y'all could see visuals of Monica's room because the way she has done this with the color tape and all the things on the floor, it makes it easy even for sixth graders to figure out what they should do, where they shouldn't be, and how they can be successful. So, all that she's talking about and thinking through, it's reinforced by a lot of the ways she's using her classroom decor and the like. Tell us a little bit about, because I've stolen a lot of it, some of the things that you've created that's in your TPT account, for example, just so we know if somebody goes, oh, I want to do something like that, how can you make it easier for them?
Yeah. So some of the things I've talked about already, those first 8 days of school, I actually use the same lesson plans every year. Of course, they tweak them a little bit, but I have a set of lesson plans for my beginning, my intermediate, and advanced students. So the student goes to the next level, but I keep teaching the same 3 lesson plans for those first 8 days. So those are in there. There's one bundle that's just the lesson plans where you can insert your own syllabus and the other items that you need. And then there's also a bundle that has my syllabus and the papers I give to my beginning students and all of those things all together. Or you can kind of create your own and just grab the things that are helpful for you. If people are interested in seeing the room layout and the tape that I'm talking about, they can find me on Instagram and we'll, I'm sure, link that below in the podcast notes. And then I also, every time I think of one of these processes or layout items or places I do or don't want students to go, or we were having trouble with students stepping over cellos instead of going around them when they were on the ground. So I created some posters. And a couple of years ago, I started using the same 6 or so background colors. And then I found some violin, viola, cello, bass clip art, since I'm an orchestra teacher, but there's other clip art out there for band directors or choir directors. And so all of my posters in the classroom use the same backgrounds and then the same clip art. And then I'll just add new text or new borders or make it a new shape. And so that, I feel, has allowed me to put a lot of information in my classroom without making it seem overwhelming or overly busy. So there is a lot up in my classroom, but because it's kind of cohesive, it seems to work pretty well. And I have a lot of that in my Teachers Pay Teacher store. Some of it is free. Some of it is stuff you can purchase, or you can just kind of scroll through and get ideas on your own. And I love using Canva. If people are familiar with that program, that's where I create all of my posters.
Yeah, you should see our music hallway, guys. She's just tons of stuff out in our hallway and up on the walls. It looks pretty cool, pretty impressive. And that is true. All of the continuity. It's like you've branded your orchestra program. There's colors, you have a certain look, and it's up levels each time you do stuff like that consistency and the like. And that's really important because we present our programs to the public. And if you can have consistency in all of this, it makes a difference. And like, hey,
it also makes it way easier to create new things because I just create a copy of something I already have and then put new text on it. So that's been great.
Back in the olden days, we didn't have those options in the 1980s before the computers were all the thing. So yeah, it's so much faster now, so much easier, and it looks way cooler. Before I have you talk about one other strategy or thing that you've created, I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, which is the Empowered Music Educator Academy, where they help busy band directors create successful programs, build supportive communities, and feel freaking amazing by providing productivity and wellness tips that support professional longevity and a healthy life.
You're listening to the Band Director Boot Camp podcast, brought to you by the Empowered Music Educator Academy. At the Academy, we're dedicated to supporting busy band directors like you with practical productivity and wellness strategies. Whether it's through our books, coaching sessions, or GPTs designed specifically for band directors, we've got everything you need to lead a successful music program without burning out. Let us help you achieve excellence in your work without working around the clock.
All right, we are back with Monica Camp, and I'm not going to let her go yet until I have her tell you about. I see her in staff meetings all the time with her iPad, and she's doing more fascinating stuff than we are in the staff meetings. But she's got an organizational system that works. And again, 2 kids and a dog at home and 8 million students in her classroom and me running over to ask her questions all the time. She's got a lot going on. How do you do it all? How do you keep track of things without having Post-it notes on everything?
One thing that I've found myself really relying on in recent years is checklists. And I don't just mean a piece of paper that I'm, writing my to-do list on. I have created for myself some checklists. I have one that's I'm relying on right now. That's the start of the year checklist. And I wrote it out in such a way that I can just reuse it year after year. The way I did that was one year I just started jotting down every time I, had something that I needed to put on a sticky note. I just kept all of those sticky notes. Or if I, completed a big project, I just jotted that down on another sticky note. I took them all at the end of that planning time. And then I put them on a single checklist. And then while I was at it, I was like, okay, well, what am I doing at the end of the year? And so now I have an end of the year checklist. Or what am I doing to prep for a field trip or a concert? And so now I have all of these checklists that I can just go and grab. And that has been super helpful. I will say my favorite checklist, though, is the things to change next year checklist. I just start with a blank checklist. It can be in a Word document. It can be in an email to yourself. I have it on my iPad planner that I'll tell you about. But what things I want to do next year, whenever a new idea comes across my brain, we're in the middle of the busiest part of the year. It feels like that's when those ideas come. Don't worry about it. I just write it down on my checklist of things I might do next year. And then when we get to the end of the school year, I can look at that list, decide what to implement, decide what to throw out, decide what to maybe save for the year after. And that has been really huge in terms of, I feel like, becoming a better teacher, becoming more organized, because you can't do it all in the moment. You can't do it all in 1 year. You can't go, especially for our new teachers. There's ideas that you have that you just are not going to have the bandwidth to implement this school year. And so having a place to set that idea and give yourself the peace of mind, like, I'm going to let this go right now. I will deal with it next year, has been really helpful. So yeah, I really have been relying on those checklists lately.
Well, and I know, especially when your brain has made 30 trillion decisions during the day, if you've got a checklist there, you're going to do things faster and easier and more efficiently.
Absolutely.
And I'm kind of you've seen my desk. Sometimes there's a lot of Post-it notes, but I do have a place in my phone where all of the, next year stuff, I have my 2025, 24, where I put all the stuff that I was thinking about next year. Whatever tools we use, it's a matter of using them and being organized enough that you can find the information when you need it. And that is Monica's thing. She is the queen of organization. She's got just a killer program going. It's just growing and growing, and a lot. And you walk in her classroom and she is just chill, because she has set the groundwork so that her students really function well. And I know how well they function even when she's on maternity leave or out on a sick day, because she set it up so well, and through the products that she uses and the processes that she teaches her students. So that's why I was so excited to have her come on today, and I bet y'all are glad you stayed here. Monica, thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me again.
Thrilled that you were here, and I thank all of you folks that are out there listening to Band Director Boot Camp. Thanks for everything you do every day to make a difference in kids' lives through the magic of music education. The work you do matters, and so do you. Join us next time on Band Director Boot Camp for another episode of productivity and wellness tips to make your life a little easier.